A lot of people are saying that at some point there will be a poll that will show them on level pegging or even reform slightly ahead of the Conservatives. I think it's extremely unlikely that when it actually comes to real votes in real ballot boxes on July the 4th, that reform would be ahead.
TimesRadio presenter and big election brain, Adam Boulton, for Bolton's Back Half. Hi, Adam. Should we dig into the Conservative manifesto? Because we are starting to get a few lines out of that Nick Robinson chat with Rishi Sunak for Panorama. He's interviewing each of the party leaders throughout the week. And one thing we're learning is that we will likely get something for first-time buyers, younger homeowners.
They've already announced that one, you know.
Yeah, so I wonder whether... Are we going to go
no
further?
stamp duty for houses under, what was it, 400,000?
425,000, so scrapping it. Has that been officially announced or was that just rumoured? I think it has been officially announced, hasn't it? Because I'm pretty sure that we have heard a minister on it. So that one's been announced already. I mean, tax cuts as well is something that's being discussed. Presumably, this might take the form of another 2 pence reduction in national insurance, do you think?
Well, that is what's widely briefed. I mean, I have to say that one thing Conservative headquarters are quite good at is sending out journalists advance notification of what might be said. And we do know that the main thrust that they are flagging up is Rishi Sunak talking about tax. And in fact, he's going to go back to that disputed £2,000 claim to the average family over the next Parliament if Labour get elected. It's going to be more precise. He's going to say £2,094.
Is he? Oh,
yeah.
Goodness me.
However you work that out, I don't know.
Well, what about the analysis that was done on their tax rises or their spending pledges, which came out at £3,000 or so?
Exactly. I mean, this is the problem which the Conservatives have got, which is that in some elections, certainly in the Thatcher era, it was possible to say, look, we have cut taxes, and the other side have spending plans that are going to put them up much more than we do. It's not really possible to do that this time around because, you know, the calculation of how much the Conservatives have put up the average household bill since they came to power is actually running at something like £13,000, by which, of course, that means that, £2,000 or even £2,094 is a relatively small amount. And as you say, if you apply the same standards to Conservative spending pledges, they're actually promising to spend more. So, you know, it's one of the interesting things with the Liberal Democrats coming out today. I mean, some people are saying, well, you know, do their spending pledges add up and their tax rises? Well, they actually are much, much lower. They're about 20 billion net.
27, yeah, okay.
Yeah, compared to over 100 billion in the last general election. And, of course, the Labour and Conservative pledges are probably about 10 billion more than that, around about 30 billion plus. So,
okay,
you know, it's quite a low budget election in that sense, if you believe they can stick to their plans. But then, of course, you've got the further allegation that if they stick to their plans, there's going to be 18 billion, 20 billion taken out of non-protected spending.
We're also hearing reports this evening that there may be a pathway to leave the European Court of Human Rights set out in the manifesto. Are they going to go further than they've gone before on that? Well,
I think we're going to have to watch that very closely because I think what they're likely to say, what's been briefed, is that they're going to say that they wish to work with other members of the European Court of Human Rights to reform the rules and the justice basis. Now, that falls a long way short of just getting out, which is effectively where reform and Suella Braverman are. So I think, you know, they're going to show a little bit of leg to people who may be thinking about deserting the Conservatives to reform, but whether it be enough is a different matter.
Yeah, I was going to ask whether there would be a little bit more in this manifesto to align the Conservative Party with those people who are turning to reform. I mean, various different polling out this evening. I think JL Partners has reform gaining another 3 points. I think the whole danger is here that reform and the Conservatives, you know, could, unless the train is stopped soon, could end up on level pegging in terms of polling. How much that's actually a reality when you go to the polls is another thing.
A lot of people are saying that at some point there will be a poll that will show them on level pegging or even Reform slightly ahead of the Conservatives, I think it's extremely unlikely that when it actually comes to real votes in real ballot boxes on July the 4th, that Reform would be ahead. And of course, it is within the context of Reform standing being spread thinly across the country to the point that it still looks unlikely that they will get an MP, although the celebrity factor might do it for Nigel Farage.
Bolton's back half. Adam Boulton is the big election brain. There'll be nothing left of it by the time I've picked it through by July the 4th. Just a quick message here from Steve via WhatsApp. Never thought I'd say this, he said, but the Lib Dem campaign has so far been light years ahead of the other parties. Yes, there's been some silly stunts, but they're also focusing on issues that are important to people. They've shown their leader to be a thoughtful human being that may have at least have some idea of what people are actually concerned about. And I've never considered voting Lib Dem in my life. Well, that may change in light of the positive campaign they are running, from Steve the gardener in Maidenhead.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, it's interesting, that last conversation. I mean, what they aren't saying this time round is vote for us because we're going to be in government. They're saying vote for us because you get more Liberal Democrat MPs and you get more Liberal Democrat ideas. So compared to 2019, you know, when you may remember their leader of the time claimed that she could be the next Prime Minister, they're really tamping down on that. And that may actually appeal to people.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we talk about the undecideds? Let's bring into the conversation Dr. Will Jennings, Professor of Political Science and Public Policy at the University of Southampton. Hello there, Will.
Good evening.
So this YouGov polling for TimesRadio just shows how many people have made up their mind. 60% of Labour supporters have made up their mind. Lib Dems are the flakiest. Of the don't knows, this is quite confusing, Adam. We're going to need to dig into this a little bit. So of the don't knows, 39% say they don't know. They don't know. So they don't know which way they're going to go, rather than don't know, I'll probably go Labour. Don't know, I've got a good idea, but I'm going to change my mind. 39% of the don't knows don't know. Tell me what you make of the analysis here. What can we glean from it?
Well, I think the word definitely know how they're going to vote is doing quite a lot of work. If you say, I'm definitely going to vote, you get under 50%, as you say, who say they know how they're going to vote. If you add up definitely, probably and likely, which are the three categories, you get to 80% of people saying they know how they're going to vote. And not much variation between the parties. So it seems to me that, yes, there is uncertainty, possibly, I think, because these are quite depressing times and there isn't really any great personal enthusiasm for any of the leaders. But this poll doesn't really undermine the notion of where the opinion polls are at the moment. I mean, it doesn't look as if there's a lot of people saying, oh, gosh, actually, I think I'm going to vote Tory in the end, for example.
Will, tell me your analysis of this. When I was speaking to voters in Leeds and Birmingham, a lot of them said, I'm traditionally a Tory, but this time I just don't know. There seem to be, more than anything else, a lot of Tory voters who don't know where they're going to put their vote. Tell me what you make of the polling here that we've had through, though.
Well, the polling from YouGov is consistent with the poll we had out from Jail Partners today, which is we're seeing that these undecideds seem to be splitting relatively evenly. I think throughout the campaign and even before the campaign started, there was this sense in which people were suggesting those don't knows would break back to the Conservatives. But we're not seeing that in the data. And I think it's worth reflecting a sort of very simple point, which is people are undecided for a reason about the Conservatives. Those people who voted for the Conservatives previously but are disillusioned, they are different from voters who are saying that they're going to stick with the Conservatives still. And so I think, far too much weight is being put on them. And if you look at some of the historical reports back from ahead of 1997, we have the same sort of narrative about, don't knows, maybe breaking back towards a major government. I think it is something that people put out there, the kind of partisans put out there, to suggest it's going to completely be a game changer. It could be a factor in seeing, a point or maybe even two drift back to the Conservatives in the final reckoning if this was the case. But I think it's being far amplified in significance beyond the actual substantive impact it's likely to have when we've got these huge Labour leads that are being reported by some pollsters.
I mean, Will, people always used to talk about shy Tories. People, for one reason or another, didn't want to say how they were going to vote, but then voted Conservative. Any evidence that there are a few of them lurking out there?
I think even at the time, it was felt that shy Tories was a very convenient excuse for pollsters to explain why they got wrong. Just they like to talk about late swing to account for polling misses. But in the day that when most people do their surveys online to apps, you don't have that sort of social desirability bias. You'd be embarrassed to tell someone you're speaking to face or over the telephone. So I think that the idea of that sort of shy Tory is not convincing. I think where if there is going to be a mechanism, it will be people who just are so disillusioned but can't bring themselves to take that final step to vote for another party. But I don't think we're none of the evidence that we're seeing around the polling, around in the correlation with by-elections or so forth, suggests that the polling's miles off.